Hello there, this is Sohail Hasni, your host at Energypreneurs. Cheap solar power, batteries, and electric vehicles are changing the transport and energy sector as we know. I bring in guests to this podcast who will help you with their ideas to navigate this energy transition. Thank you for joining. Hi, Melissa. Good morning from Manila.
Hi, good evening from DC.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Yes, you too. Exciting. It's been a while since we've chatted.
Yeah, I see you are doing a lot of exciting things. Maybe you introduce yourself first.
Yeah, so my name is Melissa Benn. I currently work at Pioneer Climate. We're a startup and we help climate tech companies apply for different non-dilutive opportunities, government grants, contracts, competitions using AI. So ever since I graduated with my MBA about a year and a half ago, I've been really enjoying learning about both AI and this huge wave, obviously with OpenAI, all these models coming out, learning a lot about LLMs and how you use them. And then also getting to really dive in and learn from amazing climate tech startups, reading through their white papers and learning all about tons of different clean energy companies that are out there and cool research and innovative work they're doing. So it's been a fun year for me in learning, which I know you've been doing a lot of learning too. So fun year for both of us.
So, do you want to highlight any of the ones that you are doing? When we met in Oxford, you were working on seaweed, some technology, no?
Yes, my true love and passion. I wouldn't even say that. More of my dream would be to one day work on seaweed. I'm not working with any companies right now that are specifically working on seaweed, but I have big faith in the red seaweed's potential to help reduce, what is it? Enteric fermentation in cattle and reduce methane emissions by using algae as a part of their feed, which are actually a lot of really cool companies that have been working, startups been poking around, but it's definitely a space that needs a lot of regulatory approvals and a lot of research to happen before it gets close to commercialization. Obviously, anything that touches human consumption becomes really complicated. So a lot of cool work is being done, but I didn't quite jump straight into there since our last meeting where I think I gave you a 2-hour lecture on how excited I was about all things algae.
So now you are helping companies like yourself as a startup to get climate financing. The queue must be really long, no?
We do have quite a big wait list. And the fun thing about being a startup and a small team is you can't actually help everyone or you can't take all the customers you wish you could. But it's been fun just to read about the companies in our wait list and also ones playing around on LinkedIn and trying to see if people want to work with us. Quite a lot of companies out there that we could help.
What exactly you do, or what's the process if someone has a brilliant startup ideas, they want to attract some climate funding? Do you have a threshold, this size, that size? What are you looking for?
It's a great question. So generally, we're looking at any company that has a good climate tech and they're looking for non-dilutive to help fix up their strategy, or not fix up their strategy, but non-dilutive funding is obviously cheaper than big investment capital. And how can they focus on expanding their mission without having to go out and raise? So we're mostly working with startups, people that are looking to ramp up to Series A or Series B. We have worked with some publicly traded companies as well. It's a range, but what we're really looking for is companies that are on the precipice with a tech that's coming out that they really need some R&D funding, or they're building facilities, or they're looking to pilot and demonstration. That's a really huge area that the U.S. Department of Energy is really excited to fund. Piloting, demoing, going out, finding partners, doing real world demonstrations, and then using that as the means to help explain how much good these climate companies could do and just show them in the real world and do those real world applications. So we're really looking for a lot of companies can hit that. We also have non-climate companies that want to sneak in, but early on, you got to really focus. So climate is our North Star.
So basically, if you are looking funding from the US government, so it must be US companies in US.
Yeah, so far. Again, because we're early and we're a startup ourselves. So we're really focusing on the US right now.
Okay, so then what's the typical size of this funding?
So it depends. There's big categories. There is the big federal, and we have worked on applications that are a few $1 million. We've worked on some that are 10 to 30, and we're working on one right now that's over $100 million. So they can be really big projects. We've also worked on some state applications that are low millions or can be high hundreds of thousands. And then some awards, competition prizes that are usually in like your 50K to 250K that are less work to put together, but still funding, but a little less cumbersome once you get the money as well. So I think our bread and butter right now are really those big multi-million-dollar opportunities. But there is a lot out there in terms of funding. It's a very dispersed landscape. And part of the value is really just bringing those opportunities to companies and saying, this is what's out there.
So how does it work? You have a website, people knows about you, and you have a form of some kind. They fill up the basic information that makes them to the long list and short list, something like that.
Yeah, it's not so much. The way that we're working right now is really using AI as an accompaniment to expertise. And I think this is really going to be the next wave of really amazing AI companies are going to say, we have human experts, and then we're going to take AI to make our human expertise exponentially more accessible and valuable. So the real benefit is you have someone that sits down with you. I'll sit down with our customers and we'll look at this $30 million project, break it down into what do you need to do, milestones, objectives, all that fun stuff to pull a project together. And then the AI comes in and helps to get drafting much quicker and helps to pull together all of the content. But there's still a really good project, as putting together a project is thousands, hundreds of little decisions that you have to then implement over the next 5 years. The way that it works is there's human prompting. We go through and we really work strategically with how do we understand a win theme? How do we pull out how your company is going to change the world? Because it is. That's what all these applications are. Whether it's low emissions aviation fuels is a lot of money in EVs and EV infrastructure right now. How can we take those funding? How do we create a project that will help the company push forward their own goals and their own mission? And how do we use AI to make that, instead of a 400-hour process, something more palatable and easier to get through? Because these applications, especially these huge DOE applications, can take hundreds of hours to put together a really good application.
Oh, okay. So I had interviewed ADB Ventures, Asian Development Bank, as a venture arm. I interviewed the key stakeholders, I think sometime last year, the year before. And they were saying, oh, the top 3 things we need. You must have a brilliant idea that's a unicorn, that's a scale up, and you must have an amazing team, blah, blah, blah. So what are your top 3 requirements? Basically, what you are mainly looking for before you touch it? So you mentioned climate, but do you have a set of matrix that you look for?
Yeah, definitely look for a great experienced team, knows what they're doing. Especially, we really are focusing on climate tech companies. There's a lot of R&D and science that's going on. So you got to have a team with some good scientists on it, some good engineers that have the background, the experience. That goes without saying. And then what's really important is they come with a really set idea of what they want funding for. They don't want money for money's sake, which everyone does. I totally get that. If we could give you a blank check for $30 million, that would be amazing, but that's not how this works. So coming with that hyper clarity of this is a specific objective that we need money for. This is why it fits into our roadmap as a company. It's going to help us grow. It's going to help us get to our next series, or it's going to help us expand into a new market, or it's going to help us explain a technology to a different market. And it needs to happen through this capital. Like, it can't happen through other traditional methods. It can't happen through sales, or it's just going to take too much time. And we need to really work at commercializing and pushing these technologies forward much faster. So there's the team. The project has a specific goal that will push forward the company. It's time boxed. There's a deliverable basis to it, and it's additive. So the fact that a funder can come in and help you achieve this needs to happen through this funder or will be accelerated through that funder. It's super important that I think people get a little blinded by the dollar signs and sometimes will want to smush their company into an opportunity that doesn't fit. It doesn't actually push them forward in the right direction. So really making sure we have parameters and it's not a distraction. And to be fair, we can help companies think through that a little bit if they're not super sure from day one, but there's definitely that kind of push.
So they have to be hyper focused and have a clarity of what they want, where the money will go, and sort of time.
And obviously a great technology or great science, obviously something that has real potential to make a splash and make a difference.
Let me understand. To understand a technology, there need to be some proof of concepts and piloting and things like that. You might enter at the beginning of that with a little bit of funding saying, let's see how it goes. And if it goes well, then we'll approach someone else for a larger funding, something like that.
So generally, applications or opportunities when they come out are very set. Like they know what they want. They want you to put together 100-something pages of information, of budget information, of what tasks are you going to complete in 2 years, and then what go, no-go decision will that lead, and how are you going to affect the community. You have an idea of the project and clarity on we need this piloted with this customer, but the intricacies and the specifics you don't have to have from day one. And it really has to match the opportunity that pulls up. And that opportunity can be very different. So you can take the same idea that matches with a few different and change some of the implementation details to make sure you're meeting with any kind of post-award compliance requirements. But generally, given the specificity in the opportunities we find, it's not so much as we win something for 50K and then we go up to 10 million and then higher. It's really dependent on what the specific project is. If you want money for building a facility or manufacturing, that's a completely different ballpark than we're looking to pilot in the Midwest. Means very different funders and different ways of putting together a project.
Yeah, so that means on the funding side, you have a sort of number of funding agencies that you are trying to match.
Oh, yeah. It can be tons. What the Bezos Earth Fund, there's American Made Challenges, Hero X. There is the Department of Energy within the whole thing. There's ERIE, which is focused on renewables. There's Vehicle Technologies offices. There's USDA, which is focused on agriculture. There's Department of Transportation. And also there are departments of transportation within each state. And that's how a lot of the EV infrastructure money is flowing out. So you can be sitting in California and you're like, okay, I'm going to look after some big federal grants. I'm going to look for the California Economic Commission. And then I'm also going to look at smaller foundations or maybe a Coca-Cola challenge that I made that up, that might pop up in California. So it's really having an eye out of the whole incentives landscape and understanding what's out on government levels and the private levels, and then seeing where a company can match. And that's definitely as much of an art as it is a science.
Yes, absolutely. Because you touched on a very interesting point, because I've been thinking I have a schedule to sit down with ChatGPTs of the world, a 2-hour session on what are the global climate funds, where they are. So you are saying you have that understanding on the US landscape, right? Who are the different donors? How do you keep yourself up to date? Because having worked for Asian Development Bank and sitting on the other side, I know that those requirements change sometimes, not priorities change, but you need to align continuously as to what their current offerings are asking, right?
Yes. It changes all the time. And I could commiserate. I used to work in international development and focus more on USAIDs and international donors. And the landscape internationally is so complex. And so I commiserate. And for keeping on track, at least domestically, it is difficult. And we've created a Pioneer AI internally that scrubs a lot of those kinds of websites that helps us keep to date. So that way we're able to pull the best opportunities for our clients. But even that said, we're adding new sources regularly, but there are infinite sources. It feels like there are infinite places that you can find this information. So a lot of it is network. I'm on a ton of newsletters that I just look on in the background and going to conferences, events, LinkedIn, just keeping an eye out. And then also having websites that I go back to that now Pioneer AI goes back to, but I'll sometimes still take a peek at if I have something fresh in my mind. I just want to jump and do it. But it's a huge problem that there are so many different companies and startups that are trying to solve just the coordination issue of this funding is just exploded everywhere. And how do you coordinate that funding? How do you pull it onto one area? So these amazing companies who need to focus in on their mission and not Googling or using ChatGPT to find out where the opportunities are so they can focus again on the mission and what's actually important.
Yeah, and also sometimes the value proposition is exactly as you said. You also help them saying that components, if you did not have or you had, then you perfectly match the requirements of funder X.
Yes. Yeah. Just as you said, partnerships is such a huge part of this. You'll have an amazing company come in and you'll see everything and you'll be like, you guys are great. What you need to do is find a university partner or look into other community groups that you can help bring up. The US right now has a really big focus, or the Department of Energy specifically, on community benefits. How do we make sure that the programs they're funding aren't just insular? They're making not a net neutral, but a net positive impact in their community. So how are we looking at workforce development groups? How can you pull from local community colleges? How can you look at your existing partnerships and make sure that you guys are a consortia? So when you are applying for these opportunities, the government's or a funder is not just giving you, they're giving a group of players that are going to really take this funding and run with it and explode with it. So 100%, a big part of this is partnerships. And a big part of the discussion is you guys are awesome, but let's like take a little half step and look around you and see who you can bring in that will make this impact.
Okay, I think I need to have a separate discussion with you on this as well, because we are in the process of establishing a consulting company, basically to look at large infrastructure projects and helping the client not only do the feasibility study, but also to say which funding agencies or how to raise the money, exactly what bells and whistles they must drop or add to fine tune to have the biggest impact, because sometimes they could be very much focused on the local conditions or local priorities. But saying, hang on, if you want to raise that much money, you need to look at the international landscape at the international level, the global public goods that you can create, which you don't care, but others do.
Yes, 100%. I'll send you stuff after this. There's some really good resources that I've pulled together. And I've also seen from really good partners about how you can look at the global public good. This is a lot in development. They talk a lot about like monitoring, evaluation, and learning plans. When you're looking at infrastructure, it's a lot about community benefits plans. And it's a whole separate topic that deserves so much focus and research and attention, because there are lots of really interesting ways that you can say, okay, we're going to establish our facility in an area that doesn't have a lot of transportation. People are in a transportation desert. Okay, can you start a shuttle system? Or if you're in an area that has really bad air quality, can part of your project be to improve that air quality, even if it's not directly related to your day-to-day of your infrastructure construction? Just being a good partner, it makes you much more likely to win for obvious reasons, right? We want our money to go farther. We want the communities to rise up with us. Man, I think a whole consultancy that just focuses on that and pulls together best practices would be amazing.
So you almost look like that the client comes to you with the main dish and you recommend all the side dishes that you have on the menu. On those
All
help you across the line, right?
There's a lot of pieces. And often it's also they have the main dish and they have all the ingredients for the side dishes in their pantry. We're just saying, hey, you should make this or pull that in here. They have the capacity. They just don't always have the time to spend to put together something that's at this
And
level.
also, also just a different set of eyes. Sometimes they can get
yes.
so carried away with what their core mission is, so don't see anything else.
Yeah. External reviewers are always good to say, we got so focused on this one deliverable. Why are we doing this? Also, the sanity check of, okay, have we just smushed our whole mission into trying to fit in to get this money? Is this still serving us? Or have we lost focus? And I think that's really easy to get it if you don't have someone with fresh eyes coming in towards the end to make sure that you guys are still on brand, on focus, on mission.
Yeah, that reminds. I used to sit on those committees. There was a renewable energy committee, or that we had some grant fund. So inside ADB, we'll allocate money for each other's project in a way, but still a core group. We are controlling the fund. And some of the projects, oh, it says you are doing this solar, but I checked, it's only 1% is the solar component. Oh, someone said it was a good idea to add. No, it doesn't make sense. Oh, yeah, we forgot. We changed the main component, so we forgot to change the title. Simple things like that. I like the whole thing, but the title really doesn't add up to what you're doing, right?
Yes. It's also hard when you have someone external who is meaning well or who sees the bigger picture and says, if you add this activity, it's going to strengthen the application. And you can either say, perfect, yes, throw it in there, but you can't forget about it. Because when it comes to implementation, they're going to come to you and say, you wrote this, didn't you? Where's the number? So you got to be real but making sure everything you say you're going to do, you're actually okay with doing it and you're going to follow through. You're going to do it.
But the practical challenge, I don't know about your documents, but we had in our board documents page limit, paragraph limit.
Oh, yeah.
So you added all the promises to people, and then some you did not make it to the page, but you still have to remember, right? It's on a footnote number 17, but yeah, someone knows there's a lot more story behind that footnote than just the footnote, right?
Oh, yeah. You gotta cut out all floral language. And even you read it and you're like, oh, I have 30 pages. That's so much time. But at the end of the month, 30 pages is actually not that much page limit. Every word means something. All those promises you make, oof, it can get real complicated.
Yes, money from other people is not easy. So what's your business model then? You get a success fee basis, or you get a consulting basis upfront from the client or from the funder? How does it work?
Yeah, so we don't work directly with funders, at least not right now.
Because you're shopping around, right?
Yeah. It's also the opportunities that come out are usually public. We do always encourage our clients to reach out and speak with like the program director or any management. Often you can grab them and run it by and say, do you want us to spend all this time on this application? And if they're really sure on what they not, they can tell you a quick yes or no, or give you some advice, save you so much time and just get to the clarity of the matter. So that's always a good step, is to try and form that relationship.
I was saying, what's your revenue model?
Yes. So we do a project fee. So it's based off of how much work is involved, which is super highly variable, and then a success fee at the end. So trying to make it more success fee than your normal consultancies, or we're not a consultancy, but these are competitors or traditional grant consultancies that don't usually do the success model. They just focus on the upfront project fee.
So success model based on milestones, or just you got the money, now approval?
Yeah, you win, you got the money, okay. Not trying to make it any more complicated than that.
Okay, so you are not involved in the implementation side of it?
Not yet. Again, we're still early. And so we would love to grow into that. Hopefully in the next year or so or two, we'll be able to do some kind of post-award compliance assistance, because there's so many little things going on that we really think AI can help manage, and manage in a really organized manner, streamlined manner. But it's a different business model. And so we're not at that phase yet, but one day when we're huge and successful.
Yeah, because we are putting together a large solar project in a country for our consulting. And then I was looking at that if we take this project from the client and make, as exactly as you said, all the promises to the funding agencies, and my credibility is online if none of those happens, right? Now they will say, agree to everything because of money. Now, how do we make sure that this thing gets delivered? because that's what I would have done as an ADB project officer. I know the client, I'll be involved in the procurement, the delivery, and I have a 5-year relationship with the project, whether it's an ADB money or I sort of got a co-financing from others, including, say, US government or Japanese government. So they get the commitment of ADB, and the ADB can commit that we are going to make sure this gets delivered because they will be involved during implementation. So that's what I was also tossing, that in our case, maybe we also need a hook of some kind that, yes, we are going to involve even as a monitoring, and they get the client to include that. That will give comfort to the others, because sometimes they run away with the money, and then it's very difficult to find that who actually knows, who made the commitment, who is accountable. So that's what the sort of I was
Yeah.
just asking. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's a fascinating question. And I think the really big difference between these kinds of big clean energy funding and international projects like that kind of that you're speaking of is that generally the projects that we're focusing on are a company is pushing forward. They have the technical capabilities and the experience to move forward. It's already planned on their roadmap. And so they may struggle with the post-award compliance because the funder may be introducing systems and requirements on reporting, finance, et cetera, that are new to the company. But the whole technical is what the company should be doing anyways. So if the company misrepresents themselves in an application, we wouldn't necessarily know it off the top of our heads, because I can't even give you an example in the moment. I'm not an engineer. I work on so many different grants that I'm unable to read it and say, oh, that math looks wrong to me. But that's why they have expert reviewers that have the deep, very specific domain expertise, so the technical expertise, that they're able to look at it and see, is this or is this not going to work, versus the international projects where you're starting up a new office, you're hiring a whole bunch of staff. Your indirects are much more complicated, especially if we're going to talk about $100 million from Department of Energy. The way you put together a proposal is almost telling the Department of Energy, we are organized, we know what we want, we can explain it really well, and we're going to be a good fiduciary. And then once you get a negotiation phase, they're going to negotiate every single detail. They're going to ask you so many questions. They're going to change a lot of stuff. They're going to be super, super clear. And they're also going to go in and recommend, hey, we did an audit of your personnel. You guys are going to need a full-time grant manager. Let's put that into your budget. Or your budget didn't really adequately have enough time for this. And so the kind of negotiation phase, a lot of things might change. We really want to show that they're able to put together a really strong proposal, idea. Everything is organized and accounted for, which will then show the government they will be a good steward of public funds. But there's not the same exact level of risk of, we're opening a new office in a new country, we're focusing on a new community of people, we're trying to bring them up, in the same way that when I was helping write proposals for those kinds of projects. To me, it feels a little bit different. But that being said, implementation is super important. And there are a lot of good, even fractional hires you can make to help get through implementation.
Wow. Yeah, I think you answered it so well. And that prompts me the next question, which is, are you going to expand internationally, or you're partnering with us? Because you're sitting on tons of knowledge that the commitments that are made in Paris. So a lot of countries, a lot of different companies globally have to do what you are doing right now.
Yeah, we'd love to. Right now, there's billions of dollars within just the US for US energy entrepreneurs, anyone that's looking at anything climate related. And just from the sole reason of you can't start biting off what you can chew as a small company, getting to proof of concept, getting product market fit, making sure everything is aligned internally so we're able to really explode and expand. I would love to work internationally. The first 10 years of my career, I got to travel all over, mostly on the sub-Saharan African continent. doing these kinds of projects. And I think that's near and dear to my heart. And as you said, there's so much good climate work to be done all over. We just need to really figure it out here first. And this also relates back to AI companies are going to be all about obsession over that unit cost of how much can you have AI make so every labor hour you spend on technical is exponentially more efficient because we don't have to spend as much time drafting the same language or putting things in different formats. You join a startup because you believe in it and you think it's going to go really well. So everything going as planned, I definitely see us hopefully, not speaking for my founders, but expanding internationally eventually.
So how old is this startup?
Yeah, so we started in 2020, and then I joined in February of 2021, and I was actually employee number one. I met Kyle, our co-founder and COO, at a climate conference, an unconference in San Francisco. They weren't really officially hiring, but we hit it off, and a couple of weeks later, I started working with them, and things have been really rocketing off ever since. It's been an awesome journey.
Yeah, this is an amazing place to be in because this also gives you a very wide angle view of what's happening, right? You see all the activities at the sort of entrepreneurial level, startup level, and then you see the funding level and you see how the transaction going on, no?
Yeah, it's an incredible viewpoint. And I'm also learning so much about specific companies and their technologies that I had no idea existed until they are signed on as a client. And then they send me all of their white papers and all their amazing shiny documents, and I get to read through it. And I've learned so much about other tech since I've joined, which has been a really fun bonus of the whole thing.
And you mentioned AI in everything. So what are the top AIs are you using?
Yeah. So definitely OpenAI. We have their API and are working with that a lot in the back end. There's a lot of fun tools. And I came into this company, my brother is a machine learning engineer. So I was aware of it, but I was not in any way familiar or fluent with the tools. And there's so much that's out there. There are search engines like perplexity.ai, which is like a Google, but it's AI enabled and it gives you explanations and then also sources for you to learn more. That's been one of my favorite tools. And Superhuman is a really good newsletter that I keep up to date with, which talks about what's happening today, right now in AI. It gives you prompts you can play with. It always plays with Midjourney and coming up with silly pictures that you can
Yeah, Midjourney is very popular now.
It's so fun. It's so fun. And then also there are automations with Zapier and other tools that are not like how people think of AI, but there are a lot of smart ways that you can integrate that and just make things more automatic and more efficient. So yeah, AI is clearly core and central to what we think is the whole point. And I've also been taking just random courses when I have the time and learning from others and understanding. When I started, I understood 10% of it, and then I was at 25. I'm like getting to 50%.
Wow. Just to stay at 50% is a lot of work because it's growing so fast, right?
Oh yeah, I'm at 50% of what I hear in this specific course. There's no way. I am not an AI expert. I can play with it and I know how to use it. It's expanding so much faster than anyone can reasonably sink their fingernails into.
You mentioned Zapier. Zapier you're using with Airtable or other too?
Yeah, so we're big on Notion. I love Notion. But Zapier can also integrate with Stripe. It can integrate with when you're sending out like contracts, like automating the non-fun administrative sides. And I'm honestly still learning Zapier. We got this really awesome new coworker who is a big fan and has been teaching me a lot. So I'm still learning exactly how we could use Zapier in more ways, but it really feels like the potential is unlimited.
Some of these tools, like I had, I don't know, hundreds of wow moments yesterday. I recorded, as I was telling you, for an hour with this other AI, Pi. My God, some of the things that it answers. Have you played with Pi, the app?
I have not played with Pi. I
Oh
will
my
check it out
God.
after this.
I think it's a completely different word because it speaks in the sort of very nice soft voice, and they are promoting it to be a personal assistant and almost like a companion. I was telling Orna that a lot of people will fall for it. The way it speaks, those people who are very lonely, because I discuss a strategy for my podcast for an hour while I was driving on the freeway. And this
Wow.
conversation got recorded. And like I was asking, okay, if I want to look up this organization, who should I talk to? Okay, these are the people. And I don't have time. Who is really involved? And say, okay, actually, if you don't want, just talk to this guy. He's the best. How can I find his LinkedIn profile? It is throwing things left, right, and the center. And it's all conversational. So it's not like a chat GPT or anything else that you have to type. You can be just going on a jogging or sitting on a treadmill having fun. Because it's almost the way I looked at it, it's like an interactive, audible book, right?
Yeah.
On any subject. I don't know where the world is headed.
Yeah. It's half scary, half exciting. I'm fully on board
It's
with.
super exciting, but like with a pinch of salt, it is scary at the same time.
Yeah. Wow. I will definitely play with that. There's also, I'm really excited about like personal assistant bots on your computer that you can program to understand how you read and respond to an email. So it can rip through your inbox and basically draft up all your responses. And then what you do, you open your inbox, you read the email, then you read the drafted response. And it's in your voice. Yeah, it's in your voice. And then you say, you can edit it, but oh my gosh, so much faster to get through your inbox if at least what it basically thinks you're going to respond is already drafted. There's so many cool things. Or having bots work in the background. You're in a meeting, we're talking right now, you say action item, and then it automatically writes something, it pops it in Slack, it's notification, it gets started, it reminds you. The potential for basically everyone gets a little AI personalized assistant that knows you on your computer and pushes through the less fun stuff. It's going to be wild. I have full faith.
What bot are you using specifically for this?
Oh, yeah. So this is like getting into baby GPT or auto GPT or baby AI. I always switch them. That's it. I always flip them when I say them out loud. But basically, you download it locally and then you can do a lot of personalization and it is just your AI bot. I will say there's a really big learning curve for that, though. A company that's doing off the shelf bots and they're trying to create a marketplace. So you could buy a bot that does a specific action for you, or you can hire someone that creates a bot that does a specific action. But all of it, the ability of AI in the near future is going to really blow our minds. I don't think we're able to really think through it yet.
I think it will create a layer of almost like a superhuman capabilities. Just imagine these simple technologies came in, like people who are using a calculator who are not, or using a computer who are not, right?
Yeah.
Now it's the next.
We're going to have this whole new society where I write in bullets and then my AI creates it into an email and then your AI translates it into bullets and then you read bullets. And basically only computers will read narrative. The rest of us will just read and respond in bullets and pretend we're reading longer.
That's actually a good insight. Yeah. Because I just drafted something to one of my real estate agents, the same. I wrote in the bullets and then get AI to expand it so that all the niceties are there. And okay, it's okay. Just correct this and then you send. I'm sure someone on the other end said, I'm not going to read this long. What is the summary?
Exactly.
Point. So Melissa, other than work, what else you're doing? You are doing a lot of fun stuff, right?
Yeah. Other than work, I am working a lot, but I like it. I'm learning the bass guitar. That's not really relevant to this conversation, but I'm trying to get involved more at a community level. So I've been auditing a bunch of different local groups and seeing where I want to like really volunteer and sink my teeth into and get involved more in my specific community at a community level. And so I'm really excited to work on that. That's my 2024 resolution, is to figure out where I can be most at value on the home front and really dive in. So I'm still in the early phases of that. But you have a dog. That's a lot of my time.
So if someone anywhere, my listeners are everywhere, if somebody wants to do exactly what you're doing, saying, okay, can I help climate companies look for climate financing or anything else? Where do they start?
Great question. I think there are lots of paths you can get there. My path, I started out focused really exclusively on sustainable agriculture. And in East and Southern Africa, I did a lot of food security work. And then I was focused on that world of funding and then got my MBA so I could transition to the private sector, but still stay around climate. And then right now I'm marrying funding. So I think you can come at it from a funding angle. You can come into it from the climate angle of I'm really passionate about this technology. How can I help increase understanding of this technology and create these projects that will then get funded? You can come in at the money level if you're good in finance and you want to come in as a VC or in any of these government agencies or at a private foundation or a company that's working to give money. I do see it as there's lots of angles in. Also, if you're just a really excellent operations person looking for those companies and joining in any kind of operational level, you don't necessarily need to come in technical. I do think that organizations or communities like My Climate Journey are really good for people that are looking to transition into climate. It helps you. It's a really good free way to connect and network and learn about the huge world of climate and jump into it. But we're in such a big wave of climate is really hitting everything. AI is coming to hit everything. It's a good opportunity for people transitioning into either to take the time to learn and chat with people. I've had dozens of random conversations just off cold calling people on LinkedIn that have been surprisingly effective. I'm always shocked when people that don't know me talk to me, but it's wonderful. Yeah, so I think there's a ton of different ways in. It's really just getting started is often the most intimidating point.
Yeah, and then LinkedIn is an amazing resource. Amazing. Not people use it properly.
Yeah, almost every time a random person reaches out to me on LinkedIn, I'm able to schedule a conversation with them just because we help each other out. Paying it forward, if you want someone to respond to you, you have to respond to them. But also, I've had a couple coworkers used My Climate Journey to transition into climate, and I'm now working with them. And they really enjoyed that kind of resource. Now, there are other ones as well, but they're escaping me in this moment.
So how can people find you other than LinkedIn?
Other than LinkedIn, LinkedIn is my home, unfortunately. I do have a personal website, also melissacbenn.com. And yeah, I guess LinkedIn. I respond to DMs on LinkedIn like it's an email address. So that's probably the best place to find me as I traipse around.
Thank you very much for your time. Is there anything else you want to share?
This was great. Thanks for having me. There's so much cool, awesome climate tech out there. Just, yeah, go forth and experiment, do fun things. Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you.
Yeah, fun thing is very important, I think.
Yeah, follow the fun. Things come.
Thank you. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Energypreneurs. To continue listening to this conversation, please visit us at Energypreneurs. Thank you. See you next time.